and thanks for joining us for the Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration. I'm your host, Alexis Avila, educator, online entrepreneur, and founder of tutoring and test prep firm Prepped and Polished, broadcasting today from snowy South Natick, Massachusetts. Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration is your destination for groundbreaking insight from today's most influential educators, leaders, and minds on the planet. Our show is brought to you by the Mommy to 5K program. My friend Jill of L3 Fitness has a terrific and affordable 12-week course for moms looking to get back into shape. To learn more about Mommy to 5K, please visit www.l3fitness.com/m25k. l3fitness.com/m25k. Get to know the Prepped and Polished community. You can find us on Facebook at Prepped and Polished, as well as on Twitter at Prep Polished. And thank you for everyone tuning in. Joining our show today is Jeff Levin. Jeff is founder of JeffLevinWorkshops.com and JeffLevinMusic.com. He's based out of New Hampshire, where he travels the U.S. coaching, teaching, and inspiring teens, young adults, families, and sports teams. Jeff is a graduate of Dartmouth College, the Boston College School of Education, and the Smith College School for Social Work. His past careers include public school teaching, Dean of Students at Vermont Academy, social worker and therapist, and currently focuses the majority of his work both coaching and consulting teens, young adults, families, sports teams, as well as touring the U.S. playing and singing with his blues band. We are grateful to have Jeff on our show today. He's going to share with us the extraordinary work he does with adolescents and young adults and how he gets them to realize their passions and potential. And to our listeners, you could submit a question at any time. The email address is radio@preppedandpolished.com. We always appreciate hearing from you. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm well, Alexis. Thank you very much for having me on.
Great. Jeff, you work with kids and young adults all the time. Have they tried to get you hooked on all the social media, the Twitters, Facebook, Snapchats, and stuff?
It's funny you say that. I was telling this story just the other day to a group of kids when computers became really popular. I remember saying to them, I'm 57, Alexis, so I said to my wife, I don't know, was this 15, 20 years ago? I said, listen, I'm not going to use this thing, this computer. I don't want to do email. She smiled wryly at me and said, okay, whatever you say. So Snapchat, no, but I do have Facebook. I'm one of these dinosaurs that realizes I ought to have a Twitter account. But at the heart of it, no, they're not convincing me. I just enjoy being with kids. And
nice.
I've worn out my thumbs texting, I'll put it that way.
So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about your background and, like where you grew up.
I grew up in Newton, Mass. I was born in '56, so I'm a graduate of Newton South High School in 1974. My background, when you're 57, that's a big question. But I ended up going to. My father graduated from Dartmouth College in '43. My late brother got out of Dartmouth in '69. My middle brother, '73, I think. I was class of '78. I majored in fun. I got out in '78, wondered what to do. Long story short, I think you said, went to BC and got a master's in teaching and taught in Carlisle, Mass for 5 years. Your audience will snicker at this, I hope. I had too much ADD to keep that classroom organized. Mr. Levin, did you correct our spelling test? Probably not. In 1984, at the age of 28, I went to Smith and got an MSW. Swam in the seas of Sigmund Freud for 3 years, trying to learn about the human psyche, at least from that perspective. Worked as a therapist for 24 years, I think it is. In the final analysis, got tired of the reactive model of therapy, i.e., what's wrong with you. I've always worked with teenagers, 20-somethings, and families. I work with adults as well, but I think I have a gift. I know I have a gift working with young people specifically, and shed the therapy venue, as it were, or medium, and switched over to life coaching. And that was about 10 years ago, and that was professionally the best thing I ever did by far.
I'm definitely going to go into that a little bit. But let's go back just a little. Who comes to your mind, some of your influences growing up?
Well, you mentioned music. I mean, the first influence I think about is B.B. King, outside the family. My father, God rest his soul, struggled with alcoholism. It was the 60s. Nobody talked about it. So there was certainly, God rest his soul again, a brilliant man who succumbed to this disease. So there was certainly a dearth of good vibes in my house as a kid in Newton. And my father's brother, my uncle Murray Levin, was a professor at BU for 25 years. Very courageous, learned man. My maternal grandmother Murray taught me about the beauty of life and of kids and of education. He had an amazing sense of humor. My grandmother taught me about the value of the mind, the value of beautiful music, the value of doing the right thing, and a couple of other relatives, my great uncle and so forth. But my path, I was on a kind of a funky path because I wasn't able to acknowledge, the moniker today, Alexis, is ACOA. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, and I really wasn't able to acknowledge the ramifications of those big four letters until I was probably in my 30s, 40s. So, to answer your question about influences, certainly family members. And I'll include my late brother Ed and my brother Andy in some regards as well.
Wow. Coming a little bit closer to the present now, you work with these adolescents all the time, and it's not for everyone. How are you able to identify with adolescents so readily? How do you get them to open up? What draws them to you and you to them?
Great question, and I just, we started saying in the 60s, I just do my thing with kids. I've always loved kids, even when I was a kid. I love to make my buddies laugh and that. Part of that is motivated from growing up with the disease, and part of it is I think, a gift. I love kids. That's number one. And my wife and I have talked a lot about this. What is the, quotes, magic that I have? I think it has to do with loving kids, loving their energy, loving the fact that they are, as I speak to them, molding their own hearts and souls. And so the potential changes that they can make in their lives, both obviously, God forbid, negative and positive, are enormous. And I see it. I used to hear people say words like what I'm about to say and think, well, that's a bunch of baloney. But I honestly see it as a privilege now to be involved in the lives of young people and their families. And any chance I get to do it is a gift to me. I'm sitting in the parking lot of New England College. I just did a seminar with a sports psychology class, and it's a gift for me. I absolutely love it, and I thank God all the time I'm still around and have a chance to help.
Tell us about your current work, Jeff. So, you go into schools a lot. As you just mentioned, you spoke at a school. You do some coaching with teams and then students, but you also work with one-on-one with the student and his or her family. What do you essentially do with the student? Like, where do they start and where do you take them?
When I get hired to work with a high school kid or middle high school or college kid, 20-something kid, where I start is, well, I'll tell you where I used to start, given my training at Smith. What's going wrong? What's bothering you? What happened to you to upset you in the past? And where I go now is, I'll say, what do you love? What makes you tick inside? What floats your boat? What do you love? Where do you want to get? And how do you want to feel? So the zeitgeist of that approach, as you can easily see, is positive and oriented towards change and grounded in what a young man or woman loves and wants. Now, many kids will say, I don't know, Mr. Levin, Jeff, I don't know what I love. Well, that's fine. And I think I established, pursuant to your earlier question, I established a relationship with a young person that's really safe, really, really safe and fun. And I love it. I love kids. And I'm helping them identify their dreams and eliminate the distractions between themselves and that dream. And a lot of times, let me just say two things. A lot of times, parents are struggling in their own lives. They're very busy. They're distracted, and we all have issues. And of course, if parents are working on things, that's going to affect their kids. And the second thing I want to say is, I went to the Angel School in Newton. We used to play bombardment, Alexis, with 8 red rubber balls, like organized dodgeball. And the bombardment I see today, one of the balls is divorce rate 50%. One of the balls is availability of artificial opiates. One of the bombardment balls is the media, sending messages to people that they have to look like, they have to look this way or that way. One of the biggest bombardment balls for me, when I come back down to that area and I'm driving on 128 and people are flipping me off, is just the general stress levels under which people are living. And I think all of this really impinges on kids. I remember I was working at a school as a school social worker in '99 when Dylan Klebold and his buddies started shooting up a school. To my knowledge, it was the first time there was a school shooting, and I remember we were all in tears sitting in the teacher's room going, what the heck's going on? 1999, 15 years ago. And this bombardment, I think, is the seminal influence today on kids and families, from global warming. The whole thing is so depressing. I hesitate to identify any more of these bombardment balls, but the last thing I'll say about it, I love working. I went to UMass and worked with the baseball team last night. I had 33 kids in a room. I love working with groups of kids. I do work with individual kids and families all the time. I love that. It's just that when I have the more kids in the room, the merrier, because we're talking about building a community for young people where they can really support each other against this bombardment and navigate the waters of adolescence and late adolescence, the same waters you and I navigated. It's just that today there's just many more pressures.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how teens have changed, but it's fascinating how you talk about bombardment balls. I love that analogy. But can we talk a little bit about maybe how teens have changed since you were a teen, since I was a teen? What are those big, what do you think are like the top, you already mentioned them, but what are some of the unique bombardment balls that today's teens face?
To me, the biggest one is pressure with a capital P, the bombardment ball of pressure.
Okay.
Pressure to have sex earlier, pressure to get amazing grades, pressure to get into an amazing college, pressure to perform well in everything that they do. This would apply certainly to the Metro West and, even city kids. I volunteered some time. I was in Roxbury last winter with a basketball team. The kids didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but the pressures on them were very similar because they see the surrounding world of achievement.
Right.
And so the biggest one is pressure. I was at Deerfield Academy working with the lacrosse kids. The one boy said to me, I'm not doing well in school. I said, well, what's your average? He said 87.
No kid.
I said, dude, you have an 87 at one of the most demanding prep schools on the planet.
All right.
That's a B+, son. And he was, what's the adjective I want to use? He was bombarded. He was fraught. He was overwrought. A lot of these kids, they're just overwrought. And, any parents listening to me today, it's easy to say, it's a dog-eat-dog world, Jeff. My kids have to achieve and so forth. But I think I think kids are getting the wrong message. Not necessarily from their parents, but certainly from the wider culture. I remember getting a B on a paper, and I was like, wow, I did a good job. If I knew in my heart, we all know if we tried hard. And I think kids are losing the barometer on what trying hard really means. Trying hard isn't good enough. I could talk for hours about this, but I'll shut up. But every kid I talk to, almost every kid I talk to is sleep deprived. And
wow.
You know what? I think their parents are too.
Yeah. Both of them.
These bombardment balls are dangerous.
We've talked about before, you and I, about the family, the mom and dad, and in some cases just a mom, just a dad, but the families of the teens that you work with. And you've mentioned often that the parents sometimes need more therapy than the kid. So is there like a correlation between, say, you get an anxious teen and an anxious parent?
Yes, yes, absolutely. If I could slow things down for all the families I work with a family in Weston. They're all going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I don't know if they'll end up listening to this, but I work with a family out in Dover. They don't eat dinner together, but maybe once every 2 weeks.
Wow.
The children certainly reflect the anxieties or the issues of parents, and believe me, I have plenty of issues. And my wife and I were not able to have kids, so I don't want to sound like some armchair analyst here. But if you said one thing if you could, this is an odd metaphor, but if you could crop dust the Boston area, and what was in that dust, I would just say it would be relax. Let's relax. We all think, can we all just relax? I mean, I can't tell you how many parents I talk to who I think they down in their heart, I think they know that their kid is doing too much, and they know they're doing too much, but they sort of can't stop. And then if you throw in the bombardment ball of gadgets, iPhones and this and that, I know friends of mine that they go on vacation with 2 or 3 gadgets. That's not vacation. That's work. But you have to be on a beach pushing buttons, but it's still work.
Right. Absolutely. Jeff, do you have any advice for a teen, say, who's trying to find his way, her way in life through these formative years? Any advice for them as they look into the future?
Be honest with yourself. If something's bothering you, be honest first with yourself. And then if it feels at 16 or 18 or 20 like something you can't manage and change, ask somebody you trust to help. Period. If there are kids listening to the sound of my voice, be honest with yourself. If there's something you're doing that you know you shouldn't be doing, be honest. If there's something bothering you and you're sad or you're scared about something, be honest with yourself. And then, if you can't manage it or change it, go ask somebody you trust. It could be your father, your mother, your uncle, your teacher, your coach, your friend. But do not suffer in silence. And
right.
Be honest and do not suffer in silence. And follow your dreams. But you can't do number 2 till you do number 1.
Right. That's great. Jeff, you're a rock and roller. You play in a band. You play in a band, the Jeff Levin Band, and you tour. You tour the U.S. Can you tell me about your music, Jeff, and how music has affected your life?
Well, I don't know where you heard I was touring the U.S. because I've been up and down New England at different phases, and so I appreciate that. It sounds good coming off your lips, believe me, Jeff's touring the U.S. But the thing for me with music, and whenever I do workshops with groups of kids or teachers or parents or whatnot, I'll bring a guitar along with me because I think music does equal the stress playing field. People love music. I heard B.B. King outline a chord on WGBH radio probably in 1967. And B.B., I heard this thing, and I was all shuttered up emotionally, and my poor father was struggling, and my family was real sad. I heard BB go, with Lucille as Gibson. You heard him say, "Boom, bum, 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 bum. I got a sweet little angel," singing blues, and something went off inside of me like Christmas lights. I felt like, what is that? What is that? And then I kept listening to blues music. Eventually, I bought a guitar, and I thank God today I'm still around singing and playing. And the music for me, if I look at it, it's a venue in which I can analyze my own growth and development. I used to play a lot of gigs, show up and try to pretend I was Albert King or Stevie Vaughan. And a guy once said to me, I was taking guitar lessons, Alexis, and I said, I'm not sounding like Clapton on this thing. And my friend Kevin Barry said, well, you're not Clapton.
Yeah.
You shouldn't comparing yourself. And that takes me back to kids. They're always, it's all about being better than the Joneses. That's not the way. That's not the way to go. So music, if I go 2-3 days without playing my guitar, I'm going a little crazy, and I'm always singing. Always singing. Yeah, always singing. Love blues music, love soul music, rhythm and blues music. The kids I work with, they play me a tune by some band with some name I can't understand. And some of it is fantastic, But I'm pretty much stuck. I'll be always going back to the blues and R&B and stuff like that.
It's your roots. How has your music, affected the kids?
Well, the kids, all kids are trying to be somebody. Sometimes they don't know who it is, but they're always trying to be somebody. And when I struck up a chord last night with the UMass baseball players, and I shut my eyes and I started singing something, I open them and I forget everybody's around me, and I'm just singing. And I think they're inspired by it. I think they see a man in front of them who's genuine, please God, and authentic, and has a certain God-given talent. And I think that I capture their imagination. I always want to capture their imagination. I have a dumb little slogan that I use. Maybe it won't sound dumb to you, but kind of cuckoo. But all the words end in T-I-O-N. So when I work with an individual or a family, sanctification, I think about making that environment very safe, sanctified. Inspiration, I want to help you. You need to. Inspiration, I used to teach English, so inspiration is to literally have the breath of God breathed into you. It comes from someplace else. Inspiration, I want to give children and families that gift. Perspiration, what's your plan to, how are you going to do the work? You say you have a dream over here. Now, some of that work's internal. You're anxious, you're shy, you're stressed. We have to get you balanced. Number one. Number two, we have to get you to do the work. You want to play hockey at Yale, you got to become balanced, and then you got to work on your stick handling. You want to be a veterinarian, you got to become balanced, be honest with yourself, realize what makes you tick. You got to get good grades. You're a mom, a dad, and a family. You say, I want my family to be more peaceable. You got to be honest with yourself. What are you struggling with? And how can we help your family get along better, So that's the perspiration. Manifestation, that's the, show the great within, the greatness, the virtues within, bring that forward. So I think of that little 4-word formula.
What's the 4 words again? Can you just...
Sanctification, inspiration, perspiration, manifestation.
Nice.
I say it and my wife rolls her eyes.
I'm sure if she had a dime every time you said said that, she'd be a rich lady.
Yeah, she'd be a rich woman. Well, there's a blues song that goes like this. I'm married to a rich man's woman, but she's living on a poor man's pay.
Oh, yeah.
Get it?
That's great.
That's good.
Jeff, how can we find you? How can we work with you, hear your music, plug yourself?
You got to, I'm a phone guy. You call me at 603-496-0305. Jeff Levin, and you go on your computer to Jeff Levin Coaching. I have 4 websites, which is the source of much ribbing from my friends. So you can go to jefflevincoaching.com, jefflevinworkshops.com, jefflevinmusic.com. And you can go to, I have a 7-piece soul band, the horn section. That's thelevitones.com.
Oh, excellent.
Yep. Thelevitones.com.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it, and what you do, is clearly inspiring, and, we need more Jeffs in this world, and that's great. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for taking the time. It's always a pleasure to be given a chance to talk about what one does. I enjoyed the time, and I appreciate it, Alexis.
Great. Thanks a lot. Well, this wraps up our show today with Jeff Levin, life coach, educator, and musician at jefflevinworkshops.com, jefflevincoaching.com, jefflevinmusic.com, thelevitones.com, or you can call Jeff. To learn more about Jeff, work with Jeff, please visit his websites. Thank you for joining us on Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration.